for video publishers in the room, you know, I think it's hard for consumers really to know what the difference is. Can anyone who's had experience with both talk about it? It seems to me, just looking at it, it's kind of like a horse race, and there's this leapfrog effect, right? I mean, you can do dynamic content delivery via Flash as well, right? Brightcove announced that with Brightcove 3. You know, so can somebody actually tell me what the difference is between Silverlight and Flash?
I mean, I've been working with streaming since 1998. My experiences are that formats last, you know, a couple years maybe in terms of their life cycle. I mean, we started with Reel 2 or something, you know, when I was at Spinner. And what we've seen is that every 2 years we do a massive re-encode our entire library, cut over to a new format. The most important considerations that I think from a business perspective are actually what's the propagation of the client-side bits that are necessary for decoding, and what's the load time going to be. Those two things consistently make a bigger difference to the end user experience than anything else. Because if you lose on those 2 points, if you push people through a client download process, your breakage rates are going to be unacceptable from a business perspective. I mean, and I say this having built and propagated proprietary formats. You know, we did that in both audio and in video at AOL. We had an audio format called Ultravox, which we built in, you know, using Dolby's technology and using HTTP transfer protocols, and we did the same thing in video. When we had a client-side business with the AOL client, and that's where most of our usage came from, that worked fine. But when we started to go to the web, what we saw was the pain points that we had to deal with from the standpoint of getting users to adopt new formats, to put in plugins, and then in the cases of some technologies, what the load time implications were of certain formats relative to other formats. We came to the conclusion that you needed to have the highest propagation of clients that are out there, and you have to have the fastest load times. And today, Flash has that. Right. That doesn't mean they'll have it forever. I mean, you know, Erick made the point himself. I mean, Windows Media owned the format 4 years ago, and you know they lost on load time, and then their propagation fell to somewhere like 80% market share. Flash is above 99. We have
Mark Larkin here, who started CNET TV way back in the Ice Ages, and you've seen a lot of different platforms, and now you're at CBS. You know, this is not a CDN infrastructure conference, but tell us sort of the needs that you guys have in terms of quality and streaming and where it might be going.
I can speak much more to the CNET TV side of it, and I think I would agree with Fred that any kind of barrier to entry or obstacle that we put in front of users in order to get the content, just they drop off at such high rates that we're trying to get the most seamless user experience. And we, you know, as a news publisher or a publisher of information around consumer electronics, we were originally publishing in, I mean, way back when, in a pop-up Windows Media Player format. And then we would go cover Macworld, and we would get tens of thousands of emails from these users who couldn't see any of the content of the coverage of the conferences that we were going to. So we made a decision with Flash penetration to go with Flash because it was easy. It was an easy experience for the users and got our content to them much faster. And I think that I can't really speak to Silverlight because I know that CBSNews.com right now is using Silverlight to do live broadcast of the evening news, and that's working very well. But again, I come back to what is the effort for the user to get to the content, and then we start with that as we start with kind of everything else at this discussion today. Is ultimately what's the user experience, because that's what's going to drive adoption and that's what's going to drive kind of viewership and stream rates. And for right now on CNET TV, we're with Flash because of the penetration level.